All right, everybody. I am excited today because I have Graham Cochran here, who just wrote this really cool book. It's called Rebel. Find Yourself by Not Following the Crowd. And if you don't know Graham, he's a friend of the SeedTime community, but he's a sought-after speaker, business coach, author. He's built two, not just one, but two really successful businesses, seven-figure businesses in the last 14 years or so. He's a worship leader, committed follower of Jesus, who I've looked up to for many years because of how he runs his businesses and how he does it in a God-honoring way. God-honoring, not ironing. And anyway, so last month we actually did a workshop with him for the SeedTime community. It went over super well. I heard so many people raving about it. And so we will try to get him to come do another one of those at some point. So make sure you're on our email list if you are not, and just go to seedtime.com/subscribe if you're not, because it was fantastic. And we're doing workshops like this pretty regularly. But anyway, today I want to break down some of Graham's biggest keys to his success so we can learn from them, so we can steal them. And a lot of this is, again, out of this book, Rebel. But Graham, thank you for taking some time to come hang out and to chat today, brother.
Bro, I'm so glad to be here. I think this is my second time on the show, and it's been a long time coming because it's cool that we've been following and revering each other's work for a decade and a half, if not longer. And it's just been in the last couple of years that we've connected and done some cool stuff together. So I love it.
Yeah, I know. It's fun. It's fun. All right. So I want to go back to, 15 years ago. You can tell me exactly when this was, but 15 years ago or so, you're in a very different position than you are right now, than you were 10 years ago, than you were 5 years ago, whatever. You're in a very, very different season. And one specific thing I remember you saying is that you were on food stamps at that point or somewhere around there. Can you take me back to that time? Tell me where you were, what was going on?
Yeah, 2009, my wife Shay and I moved from Virginia to Florida, moved 1,000 miles away from home, didn't have any family. We moved with a few friends to help plant a church. So I was going to be the volunteer worship leader. The hope was that we'd build a church and they would have enough money to bring me on staff. So I didn't have that yet. So we got jobs. We bought a house, had our first daughter, Chloe. She was born. And then I subsequently lost that job. The company ran out of money. It was the middle of the global recession. Something that you were very aware of, and a lot of people were, and it was a scary time in the financial markets, as you know, and then it was a weird time in just getting a job, keeping a job, and so I lost 2 jobs during a 10-month span, right after signing up for a mortgage and having now 3 mouths to feed, and being a church planter for free, a volunteer church planter. And if anybody's ever planted a church, they know it's actually harder than starting a business because you got nothing to sell. So it was a really scary time, and 2 things. One, you mentioned food stamps. So my wife, Shay, came to me. She had a friend whose husband had just lost his job in construction, right? It was just punishing in Florida because just like a lot of places, they were building a lot of houses, and then nobody had money for houses, so everybody got laid off. And they had just applied for, they call it SNAP, but food stamps, government paid for their groceries. And Shay had heard about her friend. They were getting like $500 a month for groceries, which in 2009 was a lot of money for groceries. And so Shay's like, babe, we need this. Cause we had savings, we had an emergency fund, all the stuff you teach, we had it, but 3 months in we were out, we had the 3 months and we used it. And I'm so glad we had it, but then it was gone. And so Shay was like, we need to apply for this. This will help us. And I told her flat out, no. I was like, no, that's not who we are. Like I had a very judgmental, mindset back then, but I said that we're not those kind of people. But she kept pressing me. She's like, babe, I don't care. We just need the help. And so I finally applied. We actually qualified, which was really depressing. And for a year, literally 18 months, we were on government assistance for food stamps. And that's when I started this business because God told me to start a blog about music recording. It was really strange, but it was a weird time of, what am I doing? I feel like a failure. I'm not providing. I'm taking handouts. I don't have a career path ahead of me. And I'm now out of money. All the good money I felt comfortable with when I'd saved was all gone. So it was probably the scariest part of my life. Yeah.
So, all right. So that's such a stark difference between where you were 10 years later, or probably 5 years later. And where's God in this? Like what transpired over, let's just say, the next 5 years, and what initiated that change for you?
Yeah, I was going through a season of trying to trust the Lord that He wants my joy again. And I say that because 4 years prior, when I was 22, I had pursued a career in music. Like that's what I thought I was going to do. My whole life was pointing up to it. Hey, get a record deal, I was trying to be a rock star.
Yeah.
But I didn't know if I'd be famous, but I was like, I think I have enough talent to get a deal and make a shot at this. And that dream came to a screeching halt when I realized after putting out an album and shopping it around the labels, nobody wanted it.
Yeah.
The only people that were going to sign me, they weren't going to pay me any money. So it wasn't really like a gig.
Yeah.
And I was getting married. So I had to make a choice. Do you keep pursuing your dream and make no money and drag your fiance, now wife, through it? Or do you get a job? And so for 4 years, I just put my head down and had a job, bounced around, hated it. Everything I did, I sold radio advertising. I worked at a jewelry store. I worked at a software company. And I just kind of created a narrative that like God doesn't care about my dreams, but I didn't want to be angry at God. So I just sort of said, well, maybe responsible Christians don't dream about things like that. They just do the right thing. And so I kind of was a person who was just doing the right thing. And so all that to say, 2009, when I'm back to this on food stamps and I lost my job, I felt the Lord kind of tease out again, like, hey, remember, you really love music and you're not meant to sit at a desk. That's not who you are. You know this. And he started to speak to me about this. And I just didn't want to go there because I was like, I know I know that I'm not wired to sit at a desk, but like, Lord, you let me down, like and now I have no money. Like I have to just do something. And he kind of challenged me on that. He said, what would it look like if you could do work you enjoy? You could do something creative and related to music. And what if you just tried? And he gave me little nuggets of ideas. And I thought, well, okay, maybe I'll try. And I tried a freelance service recording music for bands. And I started a blog and a YouTube channel in 2009, early 2010 around music and teaching other people how to record music. And I was like, the verdict is out on this, but I went on this path of, if God was giving me a second chance to do a different version of my dream, could I have the guts to dream again and maybe believe in a God that believes in dreams, actually gives you desires of your heart, Psalm 37. He like puts them in you so that you can pay attention to the way he made you, which is a huge part of what Rebel, the book, is about. And so that just was I had to relearn how to interact with the Lord and what the Lord thinks about our desires and the way we're wired.
Yeah. So if I look back at my path, my journey, and a lot of people I've talked to, it seems like oftentimes when you're in those situations, which we'll call like rock bottom or whatever the thing is, where it's like, I'm stuck. I don't know how to get out of this. It feels like God's there, but it seems to me he often invites a rope or throws a life raft, and it looks different than you expect it to. And it requires you to kind of let down maybe some preconceived ideas. And so like with your story, I'm seeing maybe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but maybe like your vision of being Scott Staff, lead singer of Creed, or whatever your vision was of being a rock star.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. That's pretty accurate.
Yeah, like if that's it, God's like, well, I have another idea, and you actually might really love this, but it requires you to kind of let go of that to pick up the new thing. Was that your case?
Dude, that's 100% right. I literally was at a youth camp speaking. Our church did a big youth camp last week, and I went. They wanted me to come speak do a panel for a workshop about like finding your purpose after high school.
Yeah. And
I had a simple 2-part message. I said, guys, you need to pay attention to your dreams. As stupid as they might seem, or even if your parents disagree, or you don't know how it's possible, or if you could even make a living doing it, doesn't matter. The point isn't that you get your dreams. The point is to pay attention to your dreams because they're a giant clue to the way God wired you, and there's something there. And then step 2, surrender your dreams to the Lord.
So good.
Because to your point, let him show you what you really dream about and what he's doing. I mean, bro, I couldn't have dreamt of being a YouTuber and a podcaster and a content creator because it didn't exist when you and I were growing up. That wasn't actually a thing you could dream about. So all I dreamed of was being a musician, doing creative work, not having the same day-to-day life, traveling, meeting people, and doing something that ministered to people and made them feel something. All of those things are true about what I do today. I actually even still get to do music, and I get to lead worship and all this kind of fun stuff. And I've written songs and sold music, but I couldn't have dreamt about being a YouTuber. And God was like, bro, just wait. I've got a better idea. To your point, here's the lifeline. It doesn't look like what you think, but if you trust me, and if you look at pay attention to your dreams close enough to see past the specific of your dream. I think we get lost on the specific of our dream, which shows we actually don't know our dreams deeply enough. It's really what's behind the specific. So if you ask yourself, I tell people in the book, in the section on writing your 50 dreams, 50 things you want, we go through this exercise. Part of the exercise, that's hard to come up with 50 things you want. Some people, maybe it's not that hard. It took me a week to write 50. But part of the exercise is to narrow it down to your top 10 and then ask yourself, why do I want this? That's more interesting to me. Why? Like, for example, one of my dreams is to own a beach condo. Okay, but why? What is it about having a beach condo that's interesting to me? And that's more interesting than the beach condo. It's what is it telling me about what I value? I will wide open space, the ocean. I like to walk. I'm learning a lot about myself. And so those things can become a reality with or without owning a beach condo. There's a lot of ways to have some of those things. And so I just think we are plagued by not knowing ourselves. That's why this book's called Find Yourself, by not following. We don't know who the heck we are. And Soren Kierkegaard, the 19th century Danish philosopher, has this haunting quote that just always has stuck with me. He says, the most common form of despair is not being who you are. And I think that's what we're dealing with right now. We're not us, and we don't even know who we are.
Yeah. No, I love that, like, digging into the why behind them. That's something that we talk a lot about, like, with financial goals, like understanding the motivation behind it, because the motivation and specifically the heart behind some of the financial goals that we have can be either right on track with God or completely off, So that heart motivation really matters. But, like, into what you're saying there, I love that. Because, and it's reminding me a little bit of some Tim Ferriss stuff too, just understanding who you are. And sometimes you can solve those problems way easier than you think too. And again, like that loose grip on, because God knows us and knows our thoughts and desires better than we do. And so that trust that his path, might actually be Romans 8:28, where he's causing all things to work together for our good, because we're called according to his purpose and love him, but it requires a faith for us to, like you said, hold loosely to those dreams and desires that we have, trusting that, he's going to move us there.
Yeah. And dude, in Ephesians, right, he can do infinitely more than we can ask, think, or imagine. So like, not only can he do, I like that verse for, he can, but like, he can think of more things than we can imagine. He can imagine better things than we can imagine. Like his thoughts are higher than our thoughts. So there's something about like, okay, Lord, be honest. Let me be honest with the Lord about my dreams. But then let him show me like cool, new, creative ways to let them come to reality that I haven't thought of yet.
Yeah. All right. So chapter 2, you're talking about the invisible force that is holding people back. Tell me more.
There is a current of what I call conformity, and that's the invisible force. Conformity of everyone is going the same way, doing the same thing, thinking the same thing without realizing it. And this is the default path. If you do nothing, and this is reality for all of us, so this is not a shaming statement. We are all busy, we're all tired, and if you have kids, multiply that by 1,000. We're tired and busy, so we don't have the energy or the brain space to think about where are we going. So if we do nothing, we will actually end up somewhere, and we will end up wherever culture is going. That could be culture at large in America, around the world. That could be your microculture, like your family, your friend group, your church, the people you hang out with. And so that's why, like, you will never find yourself the version of you that's always been there. You don't have to become something you're not. And the premise of the book is you're not becoming somebody new. You're getting back to who God made you to be, and it was probably more accurate when you were a kid, but now we've covered it up with a bunch of stuff. And so we'll never figure out who you are, get back to that, if you're just floating down the current like it's a river. You put a stick in the river, it's going to go somewhere. And that's what we're doing. If we just flow with life, we're going to end up somewhere. And I look around at how our marriage is looking, how our finances looking, how our careers, satisfaction looking, spiritual health looking, physical, mental health. All these things are not looking good. Conformity does not look good right now in modern day America or the West in these kind of 6 core areas of life I talk about in the book. So to be a rebel is to buck conformity, is to not be like, I just want to be different. It's to say, well, if everyone's jumping off a cliff, that's not a good idea. Maybe it's rebellious to not jump off the cliff. It's rebellious to not get divorced. It's rebellious to not be in debt. It's rebellious to actually have a healthy body and mind. It's rebellious to actually have a healthy walk with the Lord. Like, these things are rebellious because they're not normal, they're not common, and they're going against the grain. And so we talk a lot about in that chapter, what does conformity look like? Why we conform. Sometimes we choose to do this. So sometimes we do it by we abdicate our decision making because we're too tired. Well, what are they doing for raising their kids? How do they think about money? I don't have time to think about it. Yep. But also we do it because we kind of want to be accepted too. We don't really want to stand out from the crowd. There's something about groupthink and, like, being it's safer when you're hidden. And so no one wants to be called out for being different. And that's what's going to happen when you choose to do something different. Like when you pay off your mortgage, when you give your age and in income and percentage of income, like, it's people will be like, why are you doing that? Like, you get attention that's not really what you want. You'll probably get some positive too, but a lot of the critics will come out, even people who quote unquote care about you. Why are you doing that? And so that doesn't feel good. I'm a people pleaser. I want people to go, I love what you're doing, Graham. But it's rebellious to do things differently. And as Christians, I mean, like, we're giant rebels. Like, we are literally not from here. We're made for a different world that God's going to bring back and restore. But we should look a little different, but not different like I'm better than you and I'm going to stand out by being a jerk. But interestingly, being salt and light, when Jesus talks about this in Matthew 5, like, to me, that's what a rebel is like, wow, what is it about Bob? Why is he so, like, he's different. He's doing some different things. He seems happy. I kind of like it. He kind of seems like a good guy. Maybe I should pay attention. I think if we press into our uniqueness and rebel a little bit in these areas, it's attractive to people because the default is conformity, and it ain't working for anybody. No one's saying, I love the way my life is. It's like we're all in pain. And so I think being a rebel is going to be attractive. It will be salt and light to people.
Yeah, I mean, and like you just mentioned, I feel like if we're following Jesus, like actually following him, I feel like this is just, it should be automatic and effortless. Like, if we are serving that audience of one and following and obeying in his footsteps. But that's the thing. It's like we have the world screaming in our ear. So many of us, the percentage of time that we're listening to social media, listening to the news or whatever, versus being in the Word, like, is just so off kilter that we are following the conformity, like, in so many areas and ways of our lives. And if we just focus on him and follow his leading, like, that leads us to being what I think you're describing as a rebel, where it's like we just don't look like anybody else. We're just doing things, and we're doing them the way that he wired us. And he's the watchmaker. He knows how the watch works. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so that's so exciting to me. And I find that to be so true because there's so many, the people that we look up to in the world, and again, like, this isn't just a Christian thing here, but like the people who are really changing the world, it's like they're not just punching a clock to punch a clock. Like, they're doing what they're uniquely gifted to do, and love them or hate them. Elon Musk is one of those guys where it's like, you watch the guy operating in the God-given giftings that he has, and I wish he was following Jesus, but still, like, he's impacting the world on such a level. And there's so many people like that, where it's like they're just doing what they were wired to do, and the fruit of it's just amazing,
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a big part of this book is we're frustrated because we're living out of alignment with our design. I mean, that's why we're frustrated. So wouldn't it be beneficial to figure out how the designer designed you? Yeah. And just embrace it. And so, like, I use a silly example in the book about my espresso maker and my blender. Like, I have an espresso maker that I use every morning, and it's an automatic one with, you put the beans in the top, and the blade grinds the beans and it spits out an espresso. It's like if my espresso maker looks at my blender next to it and says, man, I want to make a smoothie. Yeah, I think I should make a smoothie. Because everybody loves smoothies. And basically, me and the blender are the same. Like, we both have a hole in the top where you put food in. We both have a blade that chops up the food. Like, I think this makes sense. I could probably make a really good smoothie. And it's ridiculous because we know, right, that at best, if we try to shove all that stuff, bananas and protein powder and almond milk in my espresso maker, we know what's going to come out. It's going to be disgusting at best. But really what's probably going to happen is the machine's going to break. Yeah. And this is what we're doing. We're like an espresso maker trying to be the blender, and we're breaking because we're operating out of our design. It's not fulfilling. That's and so my whole hope with this book is that people find the way God designed them so they can have joy and fulfillment again. And then, to your point, the fruit from that will be absolutely incredible.
Yeah. All right. So one of the things you talked about in here about dreaming, because this is exercise we take students through a lot, is trying to identify that God dream that He's put on their heart. And so you talk about how dreaming is one of the most rebellious things that you can do. Now, I understand that, and I don't know if I'm assuming you've felt like this at certain points in the past, but like I remember being in points where it was painful to dream because my circumstances, it felt like my circumstances were closing in on me. It felt like a dream was just a painful, wishful thinking exercise that, yeah, it was just really hard to do, And so, I think there are probably a lot of people in that situation where they've just been so beat down by life, beat down by circumstances, where it's like it's hard to actually dream. And so, for someone in that situation, like, how would you encourage them?
Yeah, man, this is so real. This is something I call the identity crisis intersection. So every one of us has had a dream at some point, and a lot of times it was when we were younger. And that could be a financial dream like you guys help people with. It could be a relationship dream like I want to get married or have a kid. For me, like my clients, they want to start a business. Maybe you want to move up in your career. We've all had a dream, big or small, and then we've all had a dream die. And the divorce happens, the kid literally dies. Like it's tragedy. Like the economy shifts and you lose the business or you lose the house. Like painful dreams. Or in my case with my rock star dream, I never quite got it. Like I could never quite get that dream, and so it died. What do you do? At that point, after your dream dies, you're at what I call the identity crisis intersection. It's an intersection because you've got two choices. It's like a fork in the road. And it's an identity crisis intersection because when your dream dies, part of your identity dies with it. Like that's why it hurts so much. That's why disappointment stings so much, because part of you is attached to it. And that's not a bad thing. That's the reason why we're wired to dream. Dreams fuel us. That's why, like to your point of Elon Musk, he's building these crazy things. He couldn't do that if it was a compartmentalized idea. It's not an idea. It's a dream he has. Like, bro, let's get to Mars. Like that gets him up in the morning. So the flip side is the negative. When the dreams die, part of us dies with it. It hurts. So what do you do? So you have two choices. Choice one, when your dream dies, is you can conform. You can say that was stupid. I'm not going to dream again. That's what I did. I said, dreaming must not be a real thing. Maybe Christians don't get their dreams. Maybe nobody really gets their dreams. Maybe that was selfish. Maybe that was wishful thinking. I was actually embarrassed. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to just be like everybody else. They seem to just be putting their head down and getting a job and just not really being ambitious for anything or creative. And I thought that's the path. And that's what most of us do. And that's a choice you can take. No shame if you take it. I took that for 4 years. But you have another choice. And that choice is to dream again. And dreaming again is fascinating because that could mean literally pursue that same dream a second time or a third time or 100th time. Or like we were talking about earlier, it could be dream a different version of the dream, a different iteration of the dream. Get curious about, well, how else could this dream that God put in my heart look? What am I missing? Or maybe if you did the list of 50 dreams in the book, maybe let's dream a different dream for now. Maybe it's the wrong season for that dream. And maybe I'm going to learn something from it. Maybe I'll just pursue a different dream for now. There's something, but you've got to dream again. That's the only way to stay full of joy, to not get bitter, to be close to the Lord, because we don't know the future. So your dreams actually, if you do it right, will press you into trust, like you said, trusting the Lord's work in all things, Romans 8:28. And it's exciting. It really puts you on an adventure. Like Oswald Chambers has a beautiful book about prayer. Like if you would just pray, or if you would ask, if you would only ask, I forget, it's a really small book. Forgive me for not getting the title right. But he has this great line in there where he turns prayer into wonder. He says, I wonder how God will solve this. And I think it's a beautiful flip of prayer is really like that curiosity. Instead of like, I hope God makes this happen, or I hope he solves it. It's like the adventure of walking with the Lord is, I wonder how he's going to do this, or I wonder what it will look like. And that's to me the beauty of dreaming again. And if you choose that, bro, you will not only be more in tune with yourself, you will stay younger, more full of joy. You will be an encouragement to other people. You'll be more attractive to others and have a bigger witness. It's just more fun.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, and something you said there about the season, I think that's really important, because for me, that was something took me a long time to understand, that there are different seasons. And even right now, like I actively do this on a regular basis when I have whether they're dreams or goals or whatever, where it's like I'm looking at a couple different things. I don't want to do these multiple things, and I don't have the bandwidth to do them all right now. Like I've given myself the freedom to say, all right, I need to pick one because I need to focus because I'm going to spread myself too thin if I do too many things. But instead of like completely burying the other two, I'm just going to say it's not for this season. Maybe it's for a year from now or 2 years from now or whatever. And when you understand that and you view life kind of through more of a series type of approach, rather than I have to do this all right now or I can't do any of it, it gives you so much freedom, and it lines up with the way God seems to operate, because there's so many ideas that he might give us that it is a God idea. It's just not for right now. And you need more preparation before the time's right, you know?
That's so good.
All right. So I want to talk about some limiting beliefs. And I'm curious for you, just from your perspective, because this is something that, I think in so many ways, this book will be really helpful with, but like tearing down limiting beliefs, because all of us have beliefs that are empowering us and are holding us back. And I think for a lot of us, those limiting beliefs are things that are paralyzing us and keeping us from doing what God has called us to do. So I'm curious, would you mind identifying the most common one you've seen, or the most, let's start there. Like, what do you see the most of among your students?
Yeah, man, it's so many, and this is such an important topic. So like context in the book, I have a 5-part rebel framework. It's literally spells out the word rebel to help you find yourself, because you might be like, okay, this sounds great, but how do I do that? So it's like 5 steps. It doesn't happen overnight, but I give you the path and the coaching like framework and exercises for each step. The third step, it's spelled for the letter B, is break. You have to break the negative thoughts, habits, and patterns that are leading to conformity, holding you back. So before you can actually really engage in sort of this new direction, new beliefs, you really have to undo a lot of the old programming and old code. And in that chapter, I talk about what I call an inner story audit. And we do one. You do an inner story audit of what is your inner story. And you might have multiple inner stories. These are the beliefs, the things you tell yourself without realizing it on repeat. And the problem with having these are pretty obvious, but sometimes people need to understand, and people of faith understand this, that God speaks to you all the time. But he speaks in a whisper or a still small voice, as he says for Elijah. And the problem with it being is that it's small and quiet and still, is that you won't hear it if you have this loud default inner narrative that's constantly going. And so we have to identify those narratives, break them down, dismantle them, challenge them, trap them on paper, as Tim Ferriss says, so you can sort of see them and go, okay, well, that's crazy. I tell myself that, or I think that thought. So we got to undo a lot of that. So it's a really important work before you get to the fun part of like, I'm going to go change my life. You really got to undo some of the beliefs. So I deal with this with clients all the time. This is random, but I just had a call with a client early this morning. He's got a multi-6-figure business. He wants to get to 7. It's a great business. He's in the speech therapy space. He's helping children with autism and their parents really get them to speak. And he's got a proven method. He's doing good work in the world. And we uncovered today, he's afraid of expanding. He's afraid of growth. He's actually shooting himself in the foot. He actually won't grow because he's afraid of it, because he has this belief that if I expand, if it continues to grow, it's going to be a hassle, and I'm going to have to hire all these people, and I'm going to have more attention on me, and I don't want a lot of attention. He's got a very shy personality. He's got all these things are going to happen in the future. So that's sort of a side note. Like, it's amazing how that can really impact our ability to grow a business if you have a business, let's say. But one of the common ones, I talk about the 5 biggest mental scripts that we believe. These are 5 lies we believe in the book. But one of the most common ones is, I don't have enough blank to pursue my dream. So it's usually a resource. I don't have enough contacts. I don't have enough money. I don't have enough experience. I don't have enough whatever. We just look at what we think we would need to realize the dream, and then we say, I don't have enough of it. And it's just an easy out of like, the dream might be from God. It might be a good dream. I want the dream. I'm willing to admit it. But little old me, I don't have the resources to pull it off. So for business owners, they're like, I don't have enough money to start a business. It's like, well, I started my business with $50. I don't know about you, Bob. Like, it didn't take much to start my business. I didn't make any money at first, but it didn't take money to start. A lot of people say, well, no one knows who I am. I don't have enough connections. I don't have enough followers online. I don't have what. These are all just narratives we're telling ourselves, which are fine if you want to believe them, but they are literally holding you back from God's best for your life, because he's trying to guide you and lead you, but you're not even hearing the guidance or the leading, because you're just hearing this loud, I don't have enough statements. That's a huge one. And the second one that comes up for me that's really big is really a fear-based one, which is similar to what this guy was struggling with today, but this is more specific. If I do blank, like if I pursue my dream or pursue this thing, people will judge me, or people will say this about me. And this one's really common in the Christian space because we have a shame culture, and depending on where you grew up, there's a lot of judgment and Christian on Christian hate and crime. It's like hard. Like the infighting is bad. And so there is judgment. For example, I've had people judge me because I make a lot of money in my business. I don't know where this comes from, but they're like, you must be doing something wrong because you're making money. And I'm like, wow, have you read your Bible? I don't know. But that could hold you back. Or for me, it was like, if I pursue starting a blog instead of getting a job, my in-laws are going to ask me questions. And they did. That actually wasn't a fake story. That was a real narrative, but it was whether I wanted to let that define me or not. Because like my not even my father-in-law, my grandfather-in-law, my wife's grandfather, who lived somewhat near us in Florida, he was like, what are you going to do to provide for my granddaughter? Have you gotten a job yet? And it was hard to tell that man at 6'3" that I'm blogging now about music recording. How's that going to provide for your family? I don't know. But I feel like it's what I'm supposed to do. So like the fear of judgment is a big thing that holds people back. Yeah. And it might be your close family or friends, and they might be looking out for you, but they don't know what God's speaking to you, and it's hard, man. So those two are totally insidious, and they'll hold people back.
Yeah, that's so true. As you're saying that, I'm thinking back to my journey. I had a lot of those conversations, and having family members trying to get me a job. I'm like, I got a job. I'm good. Like, and just not understanding. And that is definitely part of it, but that's, I would say, a really small price to pay for walking out what God has called you to do, walking in boldness, being a rebel, because there's so much good and joy. And I can look back on my life in the last probably 15 years that I would say that I began living more of this, what you talk about in the book, because for so long I was paralyzed and I wasn't doing this. And if I look back on all the blessings that were a result of really following what you talk about in the book, like it's just mind-blowing. It's just absolutely amazing. And this would have been a really helpful book for me 15 years ago. And even now, like I'm still getting benefit out of it. That's why I love your books, man. So anyway, if you don't have this book, you should go get it. It comes out on September 3rd, 2024. And so if you're listening to this before that, go to therebelbook.com. You can get all of Graham's awesome bonuses, including with this. I'm assuming those will be out during launch week. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. After that, go to Amazon, go wherever your favorite bookstore is to get it. But if you are feeling stuck in a job that doesn't fulfill you, if you're struggling with a business that drains you, simply living a life that doesn't feel authentically yours, then this book, you should get this book, right? And I love how Graham does it. There's a practical kind of framework for kind of going through this whole thing. So it's not just rah, I'm here to encourage you, of which he does, but also provides super practical things for you to do to move forward. So anyway, Graham, thank you for coming to hang out. Thank you for writing the book. I'm super excited about it and all the people it's going to help. Yeah, appreciate you, brother.
Bro, I appreciate you. You're a classic rebel, and it's doing the world a lot of good, so keep it up.
Yeah, thanks, Graham. All right, take care, brother.
Yeah.
I thought it was the best combination of personal finance and the Christian faith that I've ever read. This is what James said after he read our book, Simple Money, Rich Life.
And did you know that you can get a copy of this award-winning book for free?
You can get it on Amazon, but we so believe that the church needs this message that if you can cover shipping, we'd love to cover the cost of the book and send you a free copy.
All you need to do is go to seedtime.com/free to get yours.